Greetings to all C3RF members and friends across Canada and indeed around the world, and a special welcome to the folks at Veterans for Freedom on their dedicated streaming channels as they view this video summary of the C3RF update for 11 October 2024. The title of this update is Bad Moon Rising. It kicks off by noting that the good people of Canada can't be forgiven for looking askance at their once strong and free country as it shapeshifts into a monstrosity. It's as though the full moon has just risen in the 1941 classic The Wolfman, and an aristocratic gentleman transforms into a ferocious night beast. For a country that once took pride in its history and traditions as a Western liberal democracy, its citizens now find themselves looking down the barrel of a tyrannical junta hell-bent on crushing its vaunted civil liberties. The proof is in the pudding regards this transition when one notes that at the start of the Trudeau regime in 2015, Canadians saw the Charter and its protection of individual rights and freedoms as a primary source of pride in their nation. But what about now? Today's rank-and-file Canadians can be seen to be well removed from this, from his or her sunny outlook on the Charter and Canada of 2015. Indeed, they have sensed a shift in the judicial system away from the protection of such individual and fundamental rights towards the wielding of enormous authority to make decisions that are increasingly governmental in nature. Such new self-anointed authorities operate in contravention of the intent of the Charter, as was witnessed on several occasions during the course of the Wuhan virus pandemic. Courts throughout the land, including the Supreme Court of Canada, were seen to ignore the Charter need to demonstrably justify limitations of individual rights and freedoms, and instead relieve the government of, quote, the onus of demonstrating that freedom-violating laws do more good than harm, unquote. To the everyday citizen, such disrespect of the Charter intent is worrisome, to say the least. The loss of faith in Charter rights and freedoms by salt-of-the-earth Canadians is not a standalone issue, as it impacts national well-being across many sectors. As former United Kingdom Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher noted, individual rights such as, quote, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to have independent justice by independent judges, freedom to choose your government every 4 or 5 years so that your government is answerable and accountable to the people, unquote, are title deeds of freedom that are inextricably linked to political and economic freedom. After all, free men and women in a free enterprise system generate wealth just as surely as socialist societies spawn squalor through centralized planning. And so it is no surprise that Canadians see the last 10 years as the lost decade that has dashed their faith in their economy. In keeping with the shape-shifting analogy and its onset on the heels of a rising full moon, we are reminded of Clarence Clearwater Revival's music chartbuster Bad Moon Rising from 1969. It foretold of apocalyptic developments with the rising of such a moon that would include earthquakes and lightning. Again, this analogy can be extended to the current day in Canada when a bad moon rising in the form of a draconian Bill C3, the Online Harms Act, results in Canada shape-shifting into a bona fide tyranny that is given the power to stiff-arm Charter rights and freedoms. This, as the bill creates an insular digital safety commission capable of processing anonymous charges of internet hate speech, either now or in the possible future, into house arrest, onerous fines, and gagging. Who would have thought that Canada could shapeshift itself into an East Germany with the rising of a self-inflicted bad moon? The atrocity that is Bill C-63 is so in your face with its Minority Report style pre-crime provisions that it has become a worldwide concern. Elon Musk, for example, has opined that it is, quote, a terrible attack on the rights of Canadians to speak freely, unquote. Even as Jordan Peterson asserts that, quote, this is a bill that is both stunningly dangerous and appallingly lazy. It is stunningly dangerous because it produces free speech, policing, and court enterprise with an unlimited purview, one that can and will be immediately weaponized for political reasons, unquote. The fact that Musk's X profile cites 199 million followers while Peterson's taps out at a measly 5.5 million should not be lost on Canadians who feel that they are isolated on this issue and being steamrolled by an irresistible force. The free world, or what's left of it, is on their side and fully aware of the fascistic challenge that everyday Canadians are facing in the form of a bad moon rising, otherwise known as Bill C-63. The world may be paying attention, but that does not seem to faze a liberal NDP bloc government that is hell-bent on instituting the Online Harms Act without stripping it of its hate crime provisions. The Justice Minister was adamant and stated, quote, "We treat this as a package. We consulted on it as a package. We presented it as a package," unquote. Such reticence in the face of such internationalized opposition can be seen to speak to a deep-seated need to chill and control Canadian speech. After all, if protecting minors and non-consensual victims from online abuse was the order of the day, the government would most certainly present a more targeted methodology to deal with such issues. Such a targeted approach is resident within the Conservative Party's counter to Bill C-63 in the form of Member of Parliament Rempel Garner's Bill C-412. This bill homes in on the use of in-place criminal code provisions to address such abuses. The fact that rank-and-file Canadians are less than impressed with Bill C-63 and its dictatorial demands on their free speech rights is evidenced in their response to a C3RF House of Commons e-petition. The petition, sponsored by Conservative Member of Parliament Cathy Wagenthal, summarizes some of the draconian measures that will be meted out to citizens that might utter hurtful comments before it moves on to calling for an outright quashing of the bill. For their part, frustrated Canadians have taken to calling Bill C-63 the Minority Report, pre-crime bill, while iconic Canadian author and columnist Barbara Kay has flatly declared that the legislation, quote, "must be stopped," unquote. Additionally, she notes that arbitrary and unjust charges of hate speech are compounded by the bill as, quote, "a complainant's sense of injury from published words would trump a defense of objective truth," unquote. The fact that the tweaking of the sensibilities of an anonymous complainant could see you in hot water without the ability to use objective truth as a defense should be worrisome. It would send the country back to a time when such claimant accommodations resulted in the swarming of human rights tribunals by a myriad of social malcontents. This was the case in Canada before Section 13 of its Human Rights Act was repealed in 2014. Prior to that time, it ran cover for provincial human rights codes that had become a source of international embarrassment with their contentious prosecution of hurtful speech. Prime among these was British Columbia's efforts to take down Maclean's magazine over a Mark Steyn book excerpt that it published. Steyn had posited that mass Muslim migration threatened the cultural integrity of the United Kingdom and Europe writ large, and the case, after much loss of time, effort, and money on the defendant's side, was eventually dismissed. The fate of Section 13, largely as a result of such anti-free speech proceedings, was sealed. It would appear that Bill C-63 is seeking to restore the bad old days of Section 13 through its similar provisions, but this is not the end of it. Piled on top of such problematic restrictions on speech are many other measures that serve to curtail the rights of Canadians to speak their minds in peace. Some of these are noted in the C3RF e-petition that is with you now and include creating a digital safety commission that can dispense with due process and the right to life, liberty, and security of the person as guaranteed in Section 7 of the Charter, allowing the commission-appointed investigators to conduct warrantless searches in contravention of Section 8 of the Charter, obviating any need for the Commission to be bound by rules of evidence in contravention of the Charter Section 1 Limitations Clause, and aggravating an already heavy state of censorship in Canada that will further chill the speech of citizens and journalists in contravention of the fundamental rights enumerated in Section 2 of the Charter. Please consider signing this petition and let your government know that your civil liberties are a priority that you hold dear and that they need to respect. In closing, a reminder to join us at CanadianCitizens.org, where you can see this update in its full glory, including links to all of the cited documents. Simply go to the News tab at the top of the page and select C3RF Member Updates from its drop-down menu. Until next time, this is Russ Cooper signing off, wishing you and yours much happiness and freedom from C3RF.